So we'll get back to 2 Chronicles 10 here in a little bit. So I've been going through the 6 things that the Lord hates and 7 abominations. So in Proverbs 6 verse 16 it says, these 6 things that the Lord hates, yes, 7 are an abomination unto him. And it starts listing them: a proud look, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, and heart that devises the wicked imaginations. We did that last week. Feet that be swift in running to mischief. So that's the title of my sermon today. It's called Feet That Be Swift in Running to Mischief. So keep your finger in 2 Chronicles 10, and let's just turn to Exodus 21. So to start off with, what is the meaning of mischief? Because there's more than one definition. I looked it up on dictionary.com. But it's always a good idea to go to the Bible, and the first place that it mentions it, and that's Genesis 42 verse 4, where it says, but Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with his brethren, for he said, lest peradventure mischief befall him. So we see there's that Jacob is worried about mischief. Now, dictionary.com, the first definition says, conduct or activity that playfully causes petty annoyance. A tendency or disposition to tease, vex, or annoy is number 2. And number 3 is a vexatious or annoying action. Okay, so the question is, was Jacob worried about Benjamin playing pranks on people? Like, was he worried about him, tying people's shoelaces together, or going to some newlywed's house and filling it full of water balloons? And the thing is, how old is Benjamin at this time? I think a lot of us have a wrong idea, and I did, until recently I learned this. I had a lot of people have a wrong idea of how old Benjamin was when he went to Egypt. They think he was just this young person, maybe a teenager or a child. And we can find out in Genesis 46, it lists all the people that went to Egypt with Jacob. And where it lists Benjamin, it actually says in verse 21 of Genesis 46, and the sons of Benjamin were Bela and Becher and Ashbel, Ira and Naaman, Ei and Rosh, Muppim, Hupin, and Art. So there's 10 sons. So obviously he wasn't just a teenager. So if you figure, if they had them spaced close together, like 2 years apart, he'd been at least 38 or 40 years, depending on what time he started having children. So he wasn't just this teenager that was going to pull pranks. So I don't think Jacob was worried about him falling into mischief. And actually, if you read what it says there, it says, lest peradventure mischief befall him. So that would happen to Benjamin, not that Benjamin would go and cause mischief. And he wasn't worried about somebody else playing pranks on Benjamin either. This is a little bit more serious than that. So if we get to definition number 4 of mischief, I think this applies better. It says harm or trouble, especially as a result of an agent or cause. And the next 2 are similar to that. And number 5, an injury or evil caused by a person or other agent or cause. And number 6, a cause or source of harm, evil, or annoyance. And number 7, I've never heard, and that's just the devil. I've never heard mischief being referred to as the devil, but that's what they have in dictionary.com. So, it's not just some insignificant trouble, like some annoying trouble that Jacob's talking about here. If you're there in Exodus 21, there's another mention of the word mischief. We'll start in verse 22. Exodus 21, verse 22 says, if men strive and hurt a woman with child, so that her fruit depart from her, and yet no mischief follow, he shall be surely punished, according as the woman's husband will lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. Verse 23 has another mention, and if any mischief follow, then thou shalt give life for life. Okay, so if it's mischief that's bad enough that you're talking about somebody's life, that's pretty serious mischief. And I think this is talking about if he causes a miscarriage. And then 24, it goes on, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. Okay, so burnings, wounds, teeth and eye, hands, feet, that's serious mischief. And like I read, harm or trouble or an injury. This mischief sounds like injury. Let's turn to Matthew chapter 5. In Matthew chapter 5, Jesus actually talks about some of this that I just read for you. Matthew chapter 5. Let's look starting in verse 38. And this is Jesus speaking. He says, "Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you that ye resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man will sue thee at the law, and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow thee, turn not thou away." So in verse 38 it says, "Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth." And Jesus is not saying this is just some rumor that you've heard. Where they've heard it said is in the law. Okay? So he's not saying, okay, this is no longer valid. But I think what he's doing is he's explaining it a little further. Because in verse 39 it says, "But I say unto you that you resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also." So somebody's just slapping you, it's more of an insult. They're not actually doing you lasting damage or harm. So we shouldn't just fly off the handle if somebody insults us or slaps us. Yes, it's hard to take something like that, and it's never happened to me outside of my childhood. And who knows, it might happen someday. Hopefully it doesn't. But just because somebody slaps us, on the face or insults us, we shouldn't just break his teeth right away. Or somebody says some bad words about us, we shouldn't go break their legs. I think what Jesus is teaching, we should have patience and like he says, turn the other cheek. If somebody's just insulting you, just yeah, it stings, but it goes away in like a few seconds. But if they're coming out to hurt you, especially, you don't turn your family's cheek for them. If they're out to hurt your family, you protect them. You're not going to say, "Oh, you should just turn your cheek." "Oh no, that's not my cheek. That's my children's cheek." If you still have your finger in 2 Chronicles 10, we'll go there. So the question is, why are people swift in running to mischief? One of the things that can cause us to go into mischief is our tongue. If we're there in 2 Chronicles 10, let's look at verse 9. "And he said unto them," and this is what Brother Tony read here, and this is Rehoboam talking here. "And he said unto them, What advice give ye that we may return answer to this people, which has spoken to me, saying, Ease somewhat the yoke that thy father did put upon us." And he already asked the old counselors that have been with King Solomon, but now he's asking the young men. "And the young men that were brought up with him spake unto him, saying, Thus shalt thou answer the people that spake unto thee, saying, Thy father made our yoke heavy, but make thou it somewhat lighter for us. Thus shalt thou say unto them, My little finger shall be thicker than my father's loins. For whereas my father put a heavy yoke upon you, I will put more to your yoke. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions." So these younger counselors here, they're ready to cause trouble. It's like I don't know if they thought it through, but obviously they thought they were with the people that had power. So if there's a war going to be broken out, like they'll be just, sending the troops to battle. Not that they're actually going to get physically harmed that easily. But they're just ready to ruin a kingdom just with some words, and not just words, because these words have consequences. Like Solomon, towards the end of his life, he was living wickedly, and the Bible doesn't say exactly how hard he made them work or how much taxes that he put upon these people. But according to what the children of Israel is saying, their burden was pretty heavy. Okay, and they're saying, or he's saying after the counselor gives them these words, he's saying, my father chastised you with whips, I'm going to chastise you with these scorpions. So it sounds like Solomon must have had some punishment with whips. And obviously we know in the Bible that there was reason to give that punishment, but not just to make somebody work harder or faster. You don't just whip them. So, and if the tables would have been turned, these same counselors, obviously they wouldn't like it. They would have been begging for mercy. They would have been asking to have a little bit of relief. So the tongue can cause us trouble. In James chapter 3, verse 1, it says, My brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same as a perfect man, able also to bridle the whole body. Behold, we put bits in the horses' mouths, that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body. Behold also the ships, which though they be so great, and are driven of fierce winds, yet are they turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth. Even so, the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. So in James chapter 3, he's referring the tongue to like a little fire. If you got a lot of dry wood, all you need is a little fire to start a big fire. And the same thing with your tongue. A little bit of words at the wrong time or saying the wrong thing can cause a lot of problems. And it keeps going in verse 6 of James 3. It says, And a world of iniquity, so is the tongue among their members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. For every kind of beast, and of birds, and of serpents, of things in the sea is tamed and hath been tamed of mankind. The tongue can no man tame, and is an unruly evil full of deadly poison. So it's comparing the tongue to animals. We can tame animals, but he's saying the tongue can no man tame. And what controls the tongue? It's our brain. Sometimes, and God's given us a brain so we can think things through before we talk, before we act. Okay? If we just say the first thing that comes to our mind, often it's not the right thing. And even if it's the truth, sometimes it's not always the right time to say the truth. Just because somebody's ugly, they ask how they look, you don't just say, well, you're awful, you're ugly. That's just not the proper thing to do. And you could come up with all sorts of examples like that. And on the other side, I've noticed some people get insulted way too easy. Okay, let's turn to 1 Samuel chapter 18. And especially some cultures seem to have a problem with this. I've noticed some of my extended family that came from a different country, and it was Mexico, and just the cousins growing up, if you said the wrong thing to them, they were ready to fight you. Like you insulted them. I was like, we didn't grow up that way. We didn't do that so easily. Like some people, if you bump into the wrong person on the street, they're ready to fight you just because you insulted them by bumping them. It's just weird. Life is just way too short to sweat the small stuff. Like if you think of what offends you today, and you think, well, okay, in 10 years, is that going to make a difference? And then you think of, at the end of my life, will that have made a difference? It's peanuts, most of the time. Okay, if you're there in 1 Samuel 18, verse 6, there's an example here. So it's 1 Samuel chapter 18, verse 6, it says, And it came to pass as they came, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, that the women came out of all cities of Israel, singing and dancing to meet King Saul, with tabrets, with joy, and with instruments of music. And the women answered one another as they played and said, Saul hath slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s. And Saul was very wroth, and the saying displeased him, and he said, They have ascribed unto David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed but thousands. And what can he have more but the kingdom? And Saul eyed David from that day and forward. And it came to pass on the morrow, so the day after, so it doesn't take long, that the evil spirit from God came upon Saul, and he prophesied in the midst of the house. And David played with his hand as at other times, and there was a javelin in Saul's hand. And Saul cast a javelin, for he said, I will smite David even to the wall with it. And David avoided of his presence twice. So Saul was jealous. He was envious of Saul's reputation. And it's not that slaying thousands in battle wasn't some great mighty accomplishment. It was. But he wanted to be number one. Like some people have the attitude, second place is first loser. And that's not the way we should be. Obviously, we should try to do things that, whatever we do, the Bible says, do it heartily as unto the Lord. But just because you come in second place or something, let's say you're a worker at a job and what your job is to make parts, and you made a couple less than the guy ahead of you, that's nothing to be ashamed of. As long as you give it your best. But he wanted the attention. He wanted the women to sing about him. He wanted them to be like, he wanted to be the best warrior in the land of Israel. And it's not that you just stewed on it. The next day he tries killing David with a javelin. he just got jealous of him. Let's turn to the next book, 2 Samuel, chapter 19. 2 Samuel chapter 19. This story here in 2 Samuel 19. This is after Absalom's rebellion. So David's son Absalom tried to take over the kingdom, and the king and all his entourage came back over the river, and they were going to reaffirm the kingdom. And in verse 39, and there's a little bit of a heated discussion that goes on. Verse 10. The 2 Samuel chapter 19, verse 39. And all the people went over Jordan, and when the king was come over, the king kissed Barzillai and blessed him, and he returned unto his own place. Then the king went on to Gilgal, and Shimham went on with him, and all the people of Judah conducted the king, and also half the people of Israel. And behold, all the men of Israel came to the king, and said unto the king, Why have our brethren, the men of Judah, stolen thee away, and have brought the king and his household, and all David's men with him over Jordan? And all the men of Judah answered the men of Israel, Because the king is near of kin to us. Wherefore then be ye angry for this matter? Have we eaten at all of the king's cost, or hath he given us any gift? And the men of Israel answered the men of Judah and said, We have 10 parts in the king. We have also more right in David than ye. Why then did ye despise us, that our advice should not be first had in bringing back our king? And the words of the men of Judah were fiercer than the words of the men of Israel. What comes to mind when these two guys are talking, it reminds me of kindergarten or grade 1. It's like, my brother can beat up your brother. Oh yeah? Well, my brother's bigger than your brother. Like these schoolyard kids, well, we got 10 parts in Israel, and and they go back and forth, and it's just, it's crazy. But if you keep reading there in the beginning of chapter 20, and there happened to be there a man of Belial. So always a troublemaker, it seems like. A man of Belial. So he was like a pretty bad person. Whose name was Sheba, the son of Bichri, a Benjamite. And he blew a trumpet and said, We have no part in David, neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse, every man to his tents. Every man to his tents, O Israel. So this guy blows his trumpet like he's some important person, and he says, Every man to his tents, O Israel. And what these people, the way they should have reacted is like, go nuts, we just went through a rebellion. Why would we want to start another one? Like, all these people already died, why would we do it again? But what does it say? In verse 2 it says, So every man of Israel went up from after David and followed Sheba, the son of Bichri, but the men of Judah clave unto their king from Jordan even to Jerusalem. So here are these people, they just went through a rebellion, and they're swift to start mischief again. Okay? You think after you just avoided a war, like, not that many people actually died in that battle as compared to other battles, and they avoided a lot of bloodshed. But here they are willing to start it again. Just because the tribe of Judah is back-talking them a little bit about their complaints. So the people that, they open their big mouths sometimes and want to badmouth somebody else, that can cause problems. So just like Rehoboam, like we read before, and his counselors, he gets bad advice from the younger men. Like the older men gave him good advice, but then when the younger men give him a different option, well, he likes the younger men's option for some reason. That's why we should be careful who we hang out with. Okay? So just like in school, like there's people that come up with stupid ideas, and I'm no different. I'm sure I could put stupid ideas into people's minds too. There's a kid in school who says, wouldn't it be funny if we put a tack on the teacher's seat, right? It probably happened basically every classroom since the dawn of public schools. And often it's not the guy that comes up with the idea that does it, right? He's just the one that, wouldn't it be funny, right? And somebody else goes and puts it on there. And actually that did happen in one of my classes where they actually did, and then we had to fill out a secret ballot to say who did it, and then, I don't know if somebody snitched or not, but I'm sure somebody did. But there's somebody that comes up with a stupid idea, and there's somebody that's ready to do it because they want attention or they have a weird attitude causing trouble. So let's flip back a couple of pages, back to 1 Samuel chapter 30. That want to cause trouble, it seems like, in almost every crowd. 1 Samuel chapter 30, verse 21. So this is after David had gone to the Philistines. He was hanging out there. He was hiding from Saul, and then he was supposed to go to battle with the Philistines. Okay, because he was kind of together with this guy there. And then the rest of the kings of the Philistines says, no, we're not going to go if this guy's going to come, because this is who the women sang about, that he slew his 10,000. So he didn't want him along in case he's behind them, now they're surrounded. So he goes back, but in the meantime, while he was with the troops, Ziklag, where they had their families and everybody was stationed, it gets attacked by the Amalekites. And so when they come back, they realize their families are gone, their stuff is gone, and they're all sad about it. But then they decide, okay, we're going to go try to recover our family and our goods. And they wisely ask God about it first. But in verse 21, this is when they're coming back. And verse 21 says, and David came to the 200 men, which were so faint that they could not follow David, whom they had made also to abide at the brook Bezor. And they went forth to meet David and to meet the people that were with him. When David came near to the people, he saluted them. So he went out with 600 troops, but 200 of them were so tired and so exhausted they had to wait on the other side of the river, or the brook. And so the 400 went, and God was with them. They got to recover everything. But in verse 22, there's some wicked men here. Verse 22, it says, then answered all the wicked men and men of Belial, of those that went with David, and said, because they went not with us, we will not give them aught of the spoil that we have recovered, save to every man his wife and his children, that they may lead them away and depart. Then said David, you shall not do so, my brethren, with that which the Lord hath given us, who hath preserved us and delivered the company that came against us into our hand. For who will hearken unto you in this matter? But as his part is that goeth down to the battle, so shall his part be that tarrieth by the stuff. They shall part alike. And it's a good thing that David put a stop to it. I mean, they should just be thankful of God. They got their wives back and their children back without any damage. Plus they got all the spoil, they got all their stuff back, plus the spoil of the people, whatever they have. And these men of Belial, they're not happy with that. It's like, no, they can have their women and their children back. It sounds like they're not even giving them their own stuff back, even enough to, start a living. And this is what we need. When there's troublemakers, there's somebody that wants to, talk about starting a fight. You need these people, and we should be. One of them is talk people down and say, hey, whoa, buddy, it's not that important. Like, just hold your horses. And David did that. He says, who's going to listen to you? Who will hearken unto you in this matter? And he says, no, but as his part that goeth down to the battle, so shall his part be that tarrieth by the stuff. And this was actually a biblical concept. And I'm pretty sure that if you look through the law here, that Moses told people about that they would divide equally between those people. And it's good he didn't take foolish counsel. Like Rehoboam took it from the young men, but David didn't listen to these men of Belial. He just said, who's going to listen to you? It's a stupid idea, basically, is what he's saying. In Psalm chapter 1, verse 1, it says, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. And I think this is talking about who you hang out with and who your friends are. But it's also talking about just in general, you shouldn't have the mindset of these people. So you shouldn't walk in the counsel of the ungodly. So not only I don't think you should hang out with people that are ungodly, but for sure not walk in their counsel and their ideas. Because the unsaved world has a totally different mindset about the world and how the world works. And we shouldn't get our advice from people like that. We shouldn't stand in the way of sinners or sit in the seat of the scornful. And it's so easy to be scornful. And even us, it's so easy to say something bad about the next person and say, you know what such and such person did, and whatever. Like, you can just give them the opposite of a compliment. You just give them an insult and talk behind people's back. But it's better, we should have our delight in the law of the Lord, like this psalm says. It says verse 2, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. And then it goes into how the ungodly are. Verse 4, the ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. Okay, if we're still there in 1 Samuel, I'll give you, there's a really clear example of somebody that just flew off the handle, or that was willing, that was swift, his feet were swift to run into mischief. Let's turn back to chapter 22. I wouldn't want this guy as my friend. 1 Samuel chapter 22, verse 6. When Saul heard that David was discovered, and the men that were with him. Now Saul abode in Gibeah under a tree in Ramah, having a spear in his hand, and all his servants were standing about him. So they're looking for David to kill him because Saul was jealous. Verse 7, then Saul said unto his servants that stood about him, hear now, ye Benjamites, will the son of Jesse give you every one of you fields and vineyards, and make you all captains of thousands and captains of hundreds? That all of you have conspired against me, and there is none that showeth me that my son hath made a league with the son of Jesse. And there is none of you that is sorry for me, or showeth unto me that my son hath stirred up my servant against me to lie in wait as at this day. And obviously he's lying about this. David's not waiting. He's not lying in wait to try to hurt him. But it sounds like he thinks nobody likes him, everybody hates him. There's nobody that's on his side. But there is somebody that's willing to give up David. Verse 9, then answered Doeg the Edomite, which was set over the servants of Saul, and said, I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob to Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub. And he inquired of the Lord for him, and gave him victuals, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. And if we would read the story, David's running away from Saul, and he stops by, and he gets some bread, and he gets the sword from Ahimelech, who was one of the priests, or was the priest. So in verse 11 it says, then the king sent to call Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests that were in Nob, and they came all of them to the king. And Saul said, hear now, thou son of Ahitub. And he answered, Here I am, my lord. And Saul said unto him, why have ye conspired against me, thou and the son of Jesse, and that thou hast given him bread and a sword, and hast inquired of God for him, that he should rise against me to lie in wait as at this day? And this is not true. He didn't conspire against him. David didn't tell him what he was doing. He was just trying to get some food and a weapon. Then Ahimelech answered the king and said, and who is so faithful among all thy servants as David, which is the king's son-in-law, and goeth at thy bidding, and is honorable in thine house? Did I then begin to inquire of God for him? Be it far from me. Let not the king impute anything unto his servant, nor to all the house of my father. For thy servant knew nothing of all this, less or more. So he's telling him, David was your son-in-law. He was a good servant, and I didn't know anything about it that you're against David. But King Saul, he's ready to fly off the handle, and he says, and the king said, thou shalt surely die, Ahimelech, thou and all thy father's house. So why would he kill his father? Even if Ahimelech was guilty, why would he kill his father's house to boot? And the king said unto the footmen that stood about him, turn and slay the priests of the Lord, because their hand also is with David. And because they knew when he fled, and did not show it to me, for the servants of the king would not put forth their hand to fall upon the priests of the Lord. So King David's servants, they knew you don't go and kill the priests of God. They wouldn't do it, even though the king said. I mean, they could lose their own life, so it's good they didn't. They didn't listen to him. But of course, there's one troublemaker, like there usually is. In verse 18, and the king said to Doeg, "Turn thou and fall upon the priest." And Doeg the Edomite turned, and he fell upon the priest, and slew on that day 75 persons that did wear a linen ephod. And Nob, the city of the priests, smote he with the edge of the sword, both men and women, children and sucklings, and oxen and asses and sheep with the edge of the sword. So this Doeg, he had no hesitation. He just goes nuts. Like he's like, Saul told me to do it, okay, I'm going to do it. So he kills the 85 priests, and he doesn't stop there. He goes and kills their wives and their children. And that's not enough. He's got to go kill their oxen, their asses, and their sheep. It's like, if it moves, he's going to kill it. It's a good thing this guy didn't have a fully automatic weapon, or he would have gone even worse. I mean, I'd be afraid of being this guy's friend or ally, never mind this guy's enemy. He sounds like a psychopath. This Doeg the Edomite. He's got an interesting name too, but anyway. So his feet were swift in running to mischief. It's like, yeah, I'll do it. No problem. Like, what's the big deal? Just go kill the priest, and while I'm at it, kill everybody else, everything else that moves. Not just the people, but the animals too. And that's obviously an extreme example of somebody that is swift in running to mischief. In Psalm 120, verse 1, starting in verse 1, it says, "In my distress I cried unto the Lord, and he heard me. Deliver my soul, O Lord, from lying lips and from a deceitful tongue. What shall be given unto thee, or what shall be done unto thee, thou false tongue? Sharp arrows of the mighty with coals of juniper. Woe is me that I sojourn in Mesech, that I dwell in the tents of Kedar. My soul hath long dwelt with him that hated peace. I am for peace, but when I speak, they are for war." So, and even among independent fundamental Baptists, even among saved people that call themselves independent fundamental Baptists, we have these people, right? They're people that they just go bomb Iraq, or just go bomb these Muslims and let God sort them out. You know, they kill all the Muslims, or something like that. And as Christians, we should realize, yeah, Islam is a wicked religion. But our battle is not a physical battle. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places, it says in Ephesians 6:12. So, when something happens to us that makes us want to cause some mischief, and what I mean by mischief is, well, I guess both definitions of it. So just to cause annoying trouble, and then also to cause injury or harm. We should think about it a little bit. And let's say, you know, there's some politician or some group of people that you know, is just set against us. Are we going to go, you know, slash their tires, or, you know, put gravel in their gas tanks or something like that? No, because our battle is not a physical battle. We're fighting a spiritual battle. What we're going to do is we're going to go out there, we're going to knock on people's doors, we're going to give them the gospel so that there will be more of us, and we're called the salt of the earth. How much salt do you need something until it tastes salty? If we only had a percentage of people that were saved in this community, in this province, or even this country would be a lot better place to live in. Because God says, if my people will humble themselves, right? He doesn't say if the world will humble themselves. If my people will humble themselves, He's going to heal the land. Proverbs 4, verse 13, it says, "Take fast hold of instruction. Let her not go. Keep her, for she is thy life. Enter not into the path of the wicked, and go not in the way of evil men. Avoid it. Pass not by it. Turn from it, and pass away. For they sleep not, except they have done mischief. And their sleep is taken away unless they cause some to fall." And there's some people that they're not happy unless somebody's not happy. Then they're happy. There's people like this. Verse 17, let's read a few more verses. It says, "For they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. For the path of the just is as a shining light that shineth more and more unto the perfect day. The way of the wicked is as darkness. They know not at what they stumble." So there's some people, like I said, that they're not happy unless people are unhappy. One of the things that comes to mind is this punk guy, Kim Jong-un, this leader of North Korea. He's got this nice hairdo. I don't know who's better, Trump's or his, but anyway, he killed his own uncle, okay? He killed his own uncle. And he doesn't just set up a firing squad. He's got to get anti-aircraft guns and shoot at his uncle and with, I think it was his deputy, and shoot at them. Like, one shot would have, you probably wouldn't be able to find the pieces. But that's not enough. Then he's got to take a flamethrower and incinerate whatever's left. And that's just one of the weird ways this guy kills people. He's got a temper, and he wants to make sure he's in control, and obviously he's paranoid, just like a lot of these communist dictators in the past. But what I want to bring out about this is if we're easily angered, we're more inclined to be swift to mischief. If things make us mad, and we're not just calm about things, we're going to more easily get into trouble. We're going to more easily cause trouble and cause harm. And a good Bible example of this, actually the first one of this, is found in Genesis chapter 4. Go there. Genesis chapter 4. In verse 1, it says, "And Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. And Abel he also brought the firstlings of his flock, and of the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering, but unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. And the Lord said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth, and why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. And Cain talked with Abel's brother, and it came to pass, when they were in the field, that Cain rose up against Abel his brother, and slew him." So, just like with King Saul, Cain here, he gets envious of Abel. Abel's sacrifice, God had respect to it, but Cain's he didn't. And I'm not sure if this was both a burnt offering, because it makes sense to barbecue meat, but it doesn't make sense to barbecue fruit and vegetables. As a side dish, maybe, like vegetables especially, you grill vegetables, but I mean, I guess this guy was a fruit farmer or vegetables, and that's he figured that was going to be acceptable to God. But it's not that he should have just taken correction and got it right, and gave an offering like Abel he did. But here he is, he's talking with his brother in the field. So him and Abel are talking, I don't know what they're talking about. They get to the field there, they're talking, and boom, he kills his brother. He just decides time to end his brother's life. And so easily, just because Abel his offering was accepted and his wasn't, he was envious, and just like that, his brother's life was ended. And I don't know how many brothers and sisters he had at this time. Obviously, Eve was the mother of all living. And it talks a little bit further here. God talks to him about it, and he gets banished. But then it talks about, he has a wife and they conceive. So obviously, there was at least one sister. I don't know if there were any other brothers, because later it talks about another brother being born. I think later on it talks about Seth. Yeah, verse 25. And Adam knew his wife again, she bare a son and called his name Seth. For God said, She hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. So there's not even that many people in the world, and he probably killed a big percentage of them just by killing his brother Abel. In Psalm number 140, verse 1, it's a psalm of David, and David's saying, Deliver me, O Lord, from the evil man, preserve me from the violent man, which imagine mischiefs in their heart. Continually are they gathered together for war. They have sharpened their tongues like a serpent. Adder's poison is under their lips. Selah. Keep me, O Lord, from the hands of the wicked. Preserve me from the violent man who have purposed to overthrow my goings. The proud have hid a snare for me. In cords they have spread a net by the wayside. They have set gins for me, Selah. I said unto the Lord, Thou art my God. Hear the voice of my supplications, O Lord. O God, the Lord, the strength of my salvation. Thou hast covered my head in the day of battle. Grant not, O Lord, the desires of the wicked, for they're not as wicked device, lest they exalt themselves, Selah. As for the head of those that compass me about, let the mischief of their own lips cover them. Let burning coals fall upon them. Let them be cast into the fire, into deep pits, that they rise not up again. Let not an evil speaker be established in the earth. Evil shall hunt the violent man to overthrow him. I know that the Lord will maintain the cause of the afflicted and the right of the poor. Surely the righteous shall give thanks unto thy name. The upright shall dwell in thy presence. That's not very nice stuff that David's praying for, is he? He's praying for some bad stuff to happen to these people. And obviously he was righteous in doing this. And the start, it says, Deliver me, O Lord, from the evil man, preserve me from the violent man. There's people that are violent. And I brought up the example of Kim Jong-un. There's other dictators and other people that aren't in power that are ready to kill somebody. I got told a story from somebody that I met during my work, and he says, and this guy used to be an inspector in the city. He said he had told somebody to clean something up, and the guy says, "You're lucky this guy's he's not stingy, because it's going to cost him like $2,000 to fix this up, but he could have you killed for $1,400." And it's like that cheap that I might have the numbers off by a few $100s, but it's like that cheap that you're going to go kill somebody for just over $1,000. There's probably people that would do it cheaper. And you have probably one drunken spree and then that money's gone. You gotta go kill another person? It's just crazy how cheap life has become. And today's day and age with all these video games, we're shooting people, we're seeing all this blood and gore on television and these movies, and we're becoming desensitized to the value of human life. It's because if you go shoot somebody or you get killed, all you do is restart the game and boom, everything's okay. Or you shut off the movie and everything's okay. And I think especially this younger generation, if their parents aren't teaching them right, they're not going to have the right idea about human life and about even just fighting. Never mind about killing people, just about fighting. Okay, so those were a lot of bad examples. Okay, let's look at one good example. Let's turn to John chapter 2. And this is Jesus. He's the ultimate perfect example. And I don't know, I'd be a little bit hesitant to call it mischief what he does, just because of what I've learned is mischief is something bad that he do. But according to this definition, he does cause some injury and harm. Okay, but he's not swift in doing it. John chapter 2, verse 13. And the Jews' Passover was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem, and found in the temple those that sold oxen and sheep and doves, and changers of money sitting. And when he had made a scourge of small cords, he drove them all out of the temple, the sheep and the oxen, poured out the changers' money, overthrew the tables. He said unto them that sold doves, Take these things hence, make not my Father's house an house of merchandise. And his disciples remembered that it was written, Zeal of thine house hath eaten me up. So he sees something that should never have happened. They shouldn't have been basically running their business inside the temple there. But he doesn't just go in there yelling and screaming. He sits down. Well, it doesn't say he sat down. I'm just assuming he might have done standing. He makes this whip. He makes a scourge out of these small cords. So it takes some time. So he has some time to think about what he's going to do. But then he goes and does the right thing anyway. He goes and, he turns tables over. Just imagine you turn over a table and there's money on there. What kind of chaos and confusion that's going to cause. And obviously these people are going to be upset. There's probably people yelling and screaming at him. And he's taking the whip. I don't know if he hit people with it. Maybe. But for sure he got the animals out with it. The animals wouldn't move. I'm sure he would have whacked them with that. But the point I was getting at, Jesus gave us a good example. Sometimes we have to do some aggressive things, but we shouldn't just fly off the handle. Okay? I mean, obviously, if somebody's hurting one of your family, you're not going to sit down first and you're going to, braid a whip together. You're going to take care of it right away. But if we have time, we should think about the consequences of our actions before we act. I think that's a good example of, thinking things through before. And obviously, Jesus wouldn't need a lot of time to think it through. I mean, he's all powerful, all knowing. So he probably wouldn't have needed that time. But I think he's being an example to us. So we should not be swift in running to mischief. We shouldn't hang out with people that do. We should watch our tongue so that we're not, causing undue strife. And one of the things is don't go meddle in other people's problems. We get enough of our own. It says, I think I might be misquoting it, but it says the man that meddleth in somebody else, that's in strife not belonging unto him, it's like he's taking a dog by the ears. Okay, I got bit by a dog this year, so if you take a dog by the ears, you might get bit. So we shouldn't mess in that. Another thing is our attitude. We shouldn't be soon to be angry. We shouldn't have this attitude of, that wicked things are fun. It'd be fun to go shoot some Muslims or bomb them. We shouldn't have that attitude. We should rather have a loving attitude. Jesus gave us a good example of that we should love our neighbor and do good to them that despitefully use us. So let's pray. Thank you, God.